Nostradamus' famous prophecies about Napoleon and Hitler not only earned him fame and a big following, it also created great interest in searching for the Antichrist. Of course, if Nostradamus can give a pretty good description on the first two, there must be clues for the next Antichrist, right? Is finding the next Antichrist easy? It must be, because people have found so many Antichrists. Many said he is the Russian President Putin, or our President-elect Donald Trump. Actually, a new Antichrist theory appears after every U.S. election. President Reagan was the Antichrist because his name, Ronald Wilson Reagan, has 6 letters in his first, middle, and last name. And when I first heard that Nostradamus gave the name of the third Antichrist as Mobbus, I right away thought that's Bush misspelt. Of course, then I learned we actually have a Secretary of the Navy in 2009, Ray Mobbus, appointed by President Obama. So many people called that a fulfilling of the prophecy. But Secretary Mobbus has since retired, and President Obama has not really behaved in an Antichrist-like fashion. So the search for Antichrist continues. I was very curious on what Nostradamus said about Mobbus that made him the marked Antichrist. Century 2, Quatrain 62, quote, "Mobbus then will soon die. There will come of people and beast a horrible rout. Then suddenly one will see vengeance, 100, hand, thirst, hunger, when the comet will run. I don't know about you, but I saw nothing linking Mobbus to the Antichrist." So, do I have a better plan? You bet I do. I think to decode Nostradamus, you must envision how he wrote the book. Most people do not believe there is any pattern in Nostradamus' book of prophecy. But I believe when images came to Nostradamus, he can't always describe them in 4 lines. So you should look for quatrains in clusters and see if that can help decode the mystery. That's how I decoded the first 10 quatrains in Century 1. And that's also how I made the bold prediction based on Quatrain 25 to 30 in Century 5. I may be wrong in the decoding, but I think looking for clusters of quatrains is the way to go. And then you must use keywords. It is impossible to know exactly what Nostradamus meant, but by using keywords, you can find the best match. Remember the quote, "History repeats itself." The same quatrain can be describing several historical events. To pinpoint the message, you need to find relevant words, the keywords. So let me show you what I found and how I found it. After finding what I consider to be a doomsday alarm in Quatrain 525, I decided to search into Byzantium. The modern-day Istanbul is a key word. I did the search not only because Turkey has been bombarded with terror attacks in the past 2 years. It is a key country involved in the refugee crisis, a crisis that is of great importance to everyone. Turkey is also a member of NATO and a major player in the Syrian war. There are 5 quatrains about Byzantium in Century 5. The first one is 525, quote, "The Arab Prince Mars, Sun, Venus, Leo, the rule of the church will succumb by sea towards Persia, very nearly 1 million men. The true serpent will invade Byzantium and Egypt." This one was previously decoded. Quatrain 570, quote, "Of the regions subject to the balance, they will trouble the mountains with great war. Captives the entire Sacs, enthralled and all Byzantium, so that at dawn they will spread the news from land to land." This can mean World War I or the Young Turk Revolution in 1908 are the future. Century 5, Quatrain 80, quote, "Ogmius will approach Great Byzantium. The barbaric league will be driven out. Of the 2 laws, the heathen one will give way, barbarian and Frank in perpetual strife." Personally, I think it is a talk about the past, but I could be wrong. Turkey's history is full of conflicts. This quatrain may mean the conflict during the end of the Ottoman Empire, but could also mean future military coup. What do you think? In Quatrain 586, quote, "Divided by the two heads and three arms, the great city will be vexed by waters. Some great ones among them led astray in exile. Byzantium hard-pressed by the head of Persia." This quatrain is very interesting, as I believe the great city mentioned here must be Istanbul, as the city sits on both Europe and Asia, which is the two heads, and it has three electoral districts, which can be the three arms. It is surrounded by water. So who is the great one? The Antichrist? Or the one who will eventually defeat the Antichrist? Persia is modern-day Iran, but Iran and Turkey signed a treaty of friendship in 1926 and had no major conflicts since. Could this mean a conflict in the future? We may soon see. Century 5, Quatrain 80, quote, "Ogmius will approach great Byzantium." But this brings us to another key word, Ogmius. Some researchers consider Ogmius as the nemesis of the Antichrist. I'm not sure where that theory came from. Ogmius is said to be the Celtic Hercules. He is supposed to lead the people's resistance against the Antichrist, but I have no idea what led to that assumption. To get a clearer picture, I found 4 quatrains mentioning Ogmius in the Book of Prophecy. They are Century 5, "Ogmius will approach great Byzantium. The barbaric league will be driven out of the 2 laws, the heathen one will give way, barbarian and Frank in perpetual strife." Century 6, 42, "To Ogmius will be left the realm of the great Selim, who will in fact do more. Throughout Italy will he extend his banner. He will be ruled by prudent, deformed one." Century 8, 42, quote, "The natural offspring of Ogmius will turn off the road from 7 to 9. To the king long friend, O the half-man, Navarre must destroy the fort at Pau." Then in Century 9, 30, quote, "For 7 years fortune will favor Philip. He will beat down against the exertions of the Arabs. Then at his noon perplexing contrary affair, young Ogmius will destroy his stronghold." I don't know about you, but I see nothing that stands out to identify these quatrains with the Antichrist. But I did find the mention of Philip, which I believe is about his victory over the Ottoman Empire in 1571. With these quatrains cleared out of the way, let's focus on finding the next Antichrist. Quatrain 584, quote, "He will be born of the Gulf and unmeasured city, born of obscure and dark family. He who the revered power of the great king will want to destroy through Réon and Évreux." Assume this quatrain holds the clue about the next Antichrist. Who could this person be? Theory 1, since Rouen and Évreux both are in France, the Antichrist may be from France. How about the current French president, François Hollande? Although he was not born near the Gulf, he was born in Rouen, as mentioned in the quatrain. His father is a medical doctor, so he was not from an obscure and dark family. I have to say he's not a great match. But he was born in Rouen. Isn't that interesting? How about Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan? He was born in Istanbul, Turkey, which sits on the Gulf of Izmit in the Sea of Marmara. His father was a Coast Guard and he sold lemonade when he was young. He allegedly said in 2003, quote, "I'm a Georgian. My family is a Georgian family which migrated from Batumai to Rise." However, although he denied it in a 2014 NTV interview, so obscure and dark seemed quite fitting. You may argue that although the first 2 lines seem to be a perfect fit, no one can call him a great king. And how can he destroy France, since Rouen and Évreux are both in France? For that, I have to bring you back to what happened on November 24, 2015, when Turkey shot down a Russian Sukhoi 24 jet. If Turkey, a NATO member, was attacked by Russia, it could be the start of World War III. And do you know Turkey applied to join the EU in 1989? Turkey then signed a customs union agreement in 1995 and became a candidate for full membership in 1999. Since 2005, Turkey engaged in talks with the EU on a roadmap towards a visa-free regime. But in November 24th, 2016, the European Parliament voted to suspend negotiations with Turkey over concern about human rights, and Turkey's path towards autocratic rule made the EU accession almost impossible. Now, does "He who the revered power of the great king" sound more fitting? But there is another world leader born near a gulf, the Gulf of Finland. Russian President Vladimir Putin was born in St. Petersburg, right on the Gulf of Finland. His father served in the Navy and his mother was a factory worker, so his middle-class upbringing can be considered dark. He definitely has the power of a great king, and he was born on October 7th, 1952, just 10 days before the supposed birth of the Antichrist. Is he the new Antichrist? Well, only time will tell. Quatrain 5:85, quote, "Through the Suvi and neighboring places they will be at war over the clouds. Swarm of marine locusts and gnats. The faults of Geneva will be laid quite bare." When I first saw this quatrain, I searched tirelessly for Turkey's agricultural problems with locusts and gnats. Of course, with pesticides, those problems have been long gone. But then I realized two key words: Geneva and swarm. The Geneva Convention 145, Protocol 144, signed in 1951, was the treaty about refugees. Now search Turkey swarm and see what you find. Do you know how many Syrian refugees escaped their homes? In February 2016, when Turkey closed its border, there were 2.5 million. How many do you think there are now? Refugees fled Syria after the beginning of the civil war in 2011, but escalated astronomically when US-led airstrikes started in 2014. It got worse with the Russian-led bombing in 2015. It is the war over the clouds, as quoted in the quatrain, with swarms of refugees coming by boats. The Treaty of Geneva was laid bare. Quatrain 5:86, quote, "Divided by the two heads and three arms, the great city will be vexed by waters. Some great ones among them led astray in exile. Byzantium hard-pressed by the head of Persia." This seems to be a reference to Istanbul, as we have mentioned earlier, but the timing of this event is yet to be decoded. Quatrain 5:87 may hold some important clues. Quote, "The year that Saturn is out of bondage in the Frank land, he will be inundated by water. Of Trojan blood will his marriage be, and he will be confined safely be the Spaniards." Trojan is Troy, which is the modern-day Turkey, so the one we are looking for must have a Turkish wife. Probably beautiful like Helen of Troy, since Trojan is mentioned here. Let's see if that applies to the current Turkish First Lady, Emin Erdogan. She is really pretty, and what was she famous for? She was recognized for her contribution in helping the Pakistan flood victims in 2010. Frank land, could that mean land of pure? A name Pakistan is known for. I don't know astrology, so maybe there's a better explanation on Saturn being out of bondage. But taking it literally, I think it means Saturn losing its ring, or its ring losing its brightness. Believe it or not, that seems to be happening. Ring F5 has dimmed dramatically during the last 30 years. Of course, I doubt if the ring can vanish in our lifetime, but we better watch out. Anything is possible, right? I am not sure if the next two quatrains are directly related to the ones we discussed above, but it seems to be. Quatrain 588, quote, "Through the frightful flood upon the sand, a marine monster from other seas found. Near the place will be made a refuge, holding Sovana, the slave of Turin." And Quatrain 589, quote, "Into Hungary through Bohemia, Navarre and under the banner holy insurrections, by the Fiordelis Legion, carrying the bar against orisons, they will cause disturbances." The word refugee can mean the ongoing refugee crisis is far from going away, while the holy insurrections can mean the coming of Christ or Antichrist. Either way, disturbances for sure are in the horizon. I am not a psychic nor a prophet, but I feel I need to share with you on what I found. If you feel you have a better understanding about the quatrains, please share. This is Ken Peters. Thank you for watching.